Hi guys, it's Melanie. Welcome to my channel. Today I have part 2 of my book haul, so stay tuned. So I accumulated 48 books, so I ended up splitting this into 2 separate videos. So if you would like to see part 1, I will link that up here. In part 1, I showed all of the books that were sent to me as gifts or that I won from giveaways and everything that I ordered online. For this half, I have all the books that came in subscription boxes that I've done unboxings for this month, and all the books that I purchased at my local Books A Million. So let's just get right into it. From here to here are books that I got from subscription boxes. From here to here are ones that came in Owl Crate, and from here to here are Owl Crate Junior. Alright, so the first book I have here is The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna. And this says, 16-year-old Decca lives in fear and anticipation of the blood ceremony that will determine whether she becomes a member of her village. Already different from everyone else because of her unnatural intuition, Decca prays for red blood so she can finally feel like she belongs. But on the day of the ceremony, her blood runs gold, the color of impurity, and Decca knows she will face a consequence worse than death. Then a mysterious woman comes to her with a choice: stay in the village and submit to her fate, or leave to fight for the emperor in an army of girls just like her. They are called Alaki, near immortals with rare gifts, and they are the only ones who can stop the empire's greatest threat. Knowing the dangers that lie ahead, yet yearning for acceptance, Decca decides to leave the only life she's ever known. But as she journeys to the capital to train for the biggest battle of her life, she discovers that the great walled city holds many surprises. Nothing and no one are quite what they seem to be, not even Decca herself. In this bold and immersive fantasy, a young heroine fights to save a world that would dare to tame her, and discovers that she is her own fiercest weapon. And this one looks like so. Maybe I won't uncover all of the books. Okay, next up we have Sweet and Bitter Magic by Adrienne Tooley. And this has these gorgeous purple sprayed edges. This says, Tamsin is the most powerful witch of her generation, but after committing the worst magical sin, she's exiled by the ruling coven and cursed with the inability to love. The only way she can get those feelings back, even just for a little while, is to steal love from others. Ren is a source, a rare kind of person who is made of magic, despite being unable to use it herself. Sources are required to train with the coven as soon as they discover their abilities. But Ren, the only caretaker for her ailing father, has spent her life hiding her secret. When a magical plague ravages the queendom, Ren's father falls victim. To save him, Ren proposes a bargain. If Tamsin will help her catch the dark witch responsible for creating the plague, then Ren will give Tamsin her love for her father. Of course, love bargains are a tricky thing, and these two have a long, perilous journey ahead of them. That is, if they don't kill each other first. Next we have These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. And this says, the year is 1926 and Shanghai hums to the tune of debauchery. A blood feud between two gangs runs the streets red, numbing the city to its chaos. At the heart of it all is 18-year-old Juliet Kai, a former flapper girl who has returned to begin her duties as the proud heir of the Scarlet Gang, a network of criminals far above the law. Their only rivals in power are the White Flowers, who have fought the Scarlets for generations. And behind every move is their heir, Roma Montagov, who was Juliet's first love until he betrayed her. But when gangsters on both sides start clawing their own throats out, the people start to whisper of a contagion, a madness, of a monster in the shadows. As the deaths stack up, Juliet and Roma must set their guns aside and work together no matter their personal grudges. For if they cannot contain this mayhem, then there will be no city left for either to rule. In this spectacular reimagining of Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, debut author Chloe Gong brings readers on a heart-stopping journey of violence, passion, and star-crossed fates. And I love a good retelling. Okay, next up we have Witches Steeped in Gold by Sienna Smart. And this says, Araya Adair has spent her life in a cell. Heir to an overthrown and magically gifted dynasty, she was exiled from her home on the island nation of I can't say this word, Aika, when she was just a child. But every day brings her closer to freedom and vengeance. Jasmine Carote grew up dressed in gold with stolen magic at her fingertips. Daughter of the self-crowned Doyen, her existence is a threat to her mother's rule. But unlike her sister before her, Yasmin has no intention of dying to strengthen her mother's power. Sworn enemies, the two witches enter a deadly alliance to take down the woman who threatens both their worlds, Dione Cariot. But revenge is a bloodly pursuit, and nothing is certain, except the lengths Araya and Yasmin will go to win this game. Oh, and this one's really pretty. Okay, next up we have this stunning edition of Among the Beasts and Briars by Ashley Poston, and it has this beautiful sprayed edges, and I just love it. This says, Karis is safe in the kingdom of Eloria. Here there are no droughts, disease, or famine, and peace is everlasting. It has been this way for hundreds of years, since the first king made a bargain with the lady who ruled the forest that borders the kingdom. But as Eloria prospered, the woods grew dark, cursed, and forbidden. Karis knows this all too well. When she was young, she barely escaped as the woods killed her friends and her mother. Now Karis carries a small bit of the curse, the magic, in her blood, a reminder of the day she lost everything. As a new queen is crowned, however, things long hidden in the woods descend on the kingdom itself. Karis is forced on the run, her only companions a small and irritating fox from the royal garden, and the magic in her veins. It's up to her to find the legendary lady of the wilds and beg for a way to save her home. But the road is darker and more dangerous than she knows, and as secrets from the past are uncovered amid the teeth and roots of the forest, it's going to take everything she has just to survive. And the inside is really pretty of this. Okay, the last of the Owl Crate books, we have Lore by Alexandra Bracken. And, oh, this has got pretty end pages too. Looks like this. This says, every 7 years the Agon begins. As punishment for a past rebellion, 9 Greek gods are forced to walk the earth as mortals. They are hunted by the descendants of ancient bloodlines, all eager to kill a god and seize their divine power and immortality. Long ago, Lore Perseus fled that brutal world, turning her back on the hunt's promise of eternal glory after her family was murdered by a rival line. 4 years, she's pushed away any thought of revenge against the man, now a god, responsible for their deaths. Yet as the next hunt dawns over New York City, 2 participants seek her out. Castor, a childhood friend Lore believed to be dead, and Athena, one of the last of the original gods, now gravely wounded. The goddess offers Lore an alliance against their mutual enemy and a way to leave the Agon behind forever. But Lore's decision to rejoin the hunt, binding her fate to Athena's, will come at a deadly cost, and it may not be enough to stop the rise of a new god with the power to bring humanity to its knees. And I've heard really, really good things about this, so I'm super excited to have it. Okay, now for the Owl Crate Junior books. So the first one we have here is The Inbetween by Rebecca K.S. Ansari. And I just love this cover. This says, Cooper is lost. Ever since his father left their family 3 years ago, he has become distant from his friends, constantly annoyed by his little sister Jess, and completely fed up with the pale, creepy rich girl who moved in next door and won't stop staring at him. So when Cooper learns of an unsolved mystery his sister has discovered online, he welcomes the distraction. It's the tale of a deadly train crash that occurred 100 years ago, in which one young boy among the dead was never identified. The only distinguishing mark on him was a strange insignia on his suit coat, a symbol no one had ever seen before or since. Jess is fascinated by the mystery of the unknown child because she's seen the insignia. It's the symbol on the jacket of the girl next door. As they uncover more information and mounting evidence of the girl's seemingly impossible connection to the tragedy, Cooper and Jess begin to wonder if a similar disaster could be heading to their hometown. Thus begins a dark, twisty adventure about the forgotten among us and what it means to be seen, from the acclaimed author of The Missing Piece of Charlie O'Reilly. Okay, next up we have Amari and the Night Brothers by B.B. Alston. Such a pretty cover too. This one says, Amari Peters has never stopped believing her missing brother Quentin is alive, not even when the police told her otherwise, or when she got in trouble for standing up to bullies who said he was gone for good. So when she finds a ticking briefcase in his closet containing a nomination for a summer tryout at the Bureau of Supernatural Affairs, she's certain the secret organization holds the key to locating Quentin. If only she can wrap her head around the idea of magicians, fairies, aliens, and other supernatural creatures all being real. Now she must compete for a spot against kids who've known about magic their whole lives. No matter how hard she tries, Amari can't seem to escape their intense scrutiny and doubt, especially once her own supernaturally enchanted talent is deemed illegal. With an evil magician threatening the supernatural world and her classmates thinking she's an enemy, Amari has never felt more alone. But if she doesn't stick it out and pass the tryouts, she may never find out what happened to Quentin. And I think this sounds amazing. This gives me Nevermore vibes, but like a little more high stakes. Okay, next up we have The One and Only Ivan by Catherine Applegate. And this says, Ivan is an easygoing gorilla. Living in a shopping mall, he has grown accustomed to humans watching him through the glass walls of his domain. He rarely misses his life in the jungle. In fact, he hardly ever thinks about it at all. Instead, Ivan thinks about TV shows he's seen, his friends Stella and Bob, and painting. Then he meets Ruby, a baby elephant taken from her family, and she makes Ivan see their home and his own art through new eyes. When Ruby arrives, change comes with her, and it's up to Ivan to make it a change for the better. Then we have The Elephant in the Room by Holly Goldberg Sloan. And this says, it's been almost a year since Sela's mother traveled halfway around the world to Turkey, hoping to secure the immigration paperwork that would allow her to return to her family in the U.S. The long separation is almost impossible for Sela to withstand, but things change when she accompanies her father, who is a mechanic, to fix a truck outside their Oregon town. There, behind an enormous stone wall, Sela meets a grandfatherly man who only months before won the lottery. Their new alliance leads to the rescue of a circus elephant named Vita, and then to a friendship with an unusual boy named Mateo, proving that comfort and hope come in the most unlikely of places. A moving story of family separation and the importance of the connection between animals and humans. This novel has the enormous heart and uplifting humor that readers have come to expect from the beloved author of Counting by Sevens. Next up we have Paolo, Santiago, and the River of Tears by Taylor K. Mija. And this says, space-obsessed Paolo, Santiago, and her two best friends, Emma and Dante, know the rule. Stay away from the river. It's all they've heard since a schoolmate of theirs drowned a year ago. Pao is embarrassed to admit that she's been told to stay away for even longer than that, because her mother is constantly warning her about La Llorona, the wailing ghost woman who wanders the banks of the Gila at night, looking for young people to drag into its murky depths. Hating her mother's humiliating superstitions and knowing that she and her friends would never venture into the water, Pao organizes a meetup to test out her new telescope near the Gila, since it's the best stargazing spot. But when Emma never arrives and Pao sees a shadowy figure in the reeds, it seems like maybe her mother was right. Pao has always relied on hard science to make sense of the world, but to find her friend, she will have to enter the world of her nightmares, which includes unnatural mists, mind-bending monsters, and relentless spirits controlled by a terrifying force that defies both logic and myth. And then the last of the Outcrate Junior books, we have Cecerios and the Desert of Souls by Kayla Riviera. This says, "That's what you do for familia. Living in the remote town of Tierra del Sol is dangerous, especially in the Criatura months, when powerful spirits break free from their home in Devil's Alley to threaten humankind. But Cecilia Rios has always believed there is more to the Criaturas who roam the desert, much to her family's disapproval. After all, it's common knowledge that only brujas, humans who capture and control Criaturas, consort with the spirits, and brujeria is a terrible crime. When her older sister, Juana, is kidnapped by El Soberon, a powerful dark Criatura, everyone in town believes she's lost forever. But Cece is determined to bring Juana back. To get into Devil's Alley, though, she'll have to become a bruja herself, while hiding her quest from her parents, her town, and the other brujas. Thankfully, the legendary Criatura Coyote has a soft spot for humans and agrees to help her on her journey. With him at her side, Cece sets out to reunite her family, and maybe even change what it means to be a bruja along the way." Okay, so those are all of the subscription box books that I have. Now, the rest of this stack are books that came from Books A Million. My local Books A Million, they're closing down, and they had everything on sale just for 20% because they're still not closing down for a few months. So I went in and I bought a whole bunch of stuff. So the first two books I have here are part of a series. Let me look up on Goodreads to see what numbers in the series these are. Okay, so I already currently own books 1 and 2 of this series, and the ones that I purchased at Books A Million are books 3 and 4. So this is book 3 and 4 of the Jane Hawk series by Dean Koontz. We have The Crooked Staircase and The Forbidden Door. And the Jane Hawk series, it says, Jane Hawk, an FBI agent on leave, attempts to bring down a conspiracy causing happy, sound of mind people to commit suicide. So I got both of those. Okay, next up we have A Tale of Witchcraft by Chris Colfer. This is the sequel to his newest, I think it's his newest series, A Tale of Magic. Anyway, this looks like so. This cover, like without the jacket, is so pretty too. And it actually changes stuff from this. So this one looks like just a little girl, and here she looks like a rag doll or something. But because this is a sequel, I have the first book here so I can tell you about it. The first book, my copy, is a paperback because it's actually the art of it. So, okay, so this says, "Welcome to Madam Weatherby's Academy of Magic, where things are not at all what they seem. Bristol Evergreen has always known she was destined for great things. That is, if she can survive the oppressive Southern Kingdom. Books are her only escape, but since it's illegal for women to read, she has to find creative ways of acquiring them. Volunteering as a maid at her local library gives Bristol the perfect excuse to be near them and allows her to sneak a few titles home when no one is looking. But one day she finds a book about magic, changing the course of her life forever. A Tale of Magic begins an all-new series filled with adventure, imagination, and wonderfully memorable characters, with a never-before-told story that reveals the world before the Land of Stories began. Ooh, I've only read the first book in the Land of Stories and absolutely love that. So I'm really excited to read more of it. And this is cool. In a society where magic is outlawed, it will take the magic of friendship and, well, actual magic to save the day. I actually haven't gotten around to reading this one yet, but I loved Land of Stories so much that I wanted all of his books. Okay, next up we have The Night Country by Melissa Albert. This is a Hazelwood novel. And let me pull up the Hazelwood. So The Night Country is the second book in this series, and I have or maybe it's a duology, I'm not sure. I do have the first book around here. And I actually gave that book 5 stars. I said, I really enjoyed this book. It was such a cool story, and it went not at all like I expected. This is a story about a girl named Alice and her mother who are constantly trying to run away from their bad luck. Then one day, the bad luck finally catches up with them, and these fairy tale people that Alice's grandmother wrote stories about have somehow come into the real world and kidnapped her mother. Her mother was only able to leave her with one warning: stay away from the Hazelwood. The Hazelwood was her grandmother's estate. With no money and no clue where the Hazelwood is, and desperate to find and save her mother, Alice recruits the help of a rich boy from school who also happens to be a huge fan of her grandmother. Things do not go the way that anyone would expect. I really enjoyed it, and so I'm happy to have the second one now. Next up we have What's Not to Love by Emily Wibberley and Austin Segman-Broca. And I have read all their other books so far, Always Never Yours, If I'm Being Honest, and Time of Our Lives. And I've really enjoyed all of them. I think this one is different because I think it's more like new adult or something like that. And I also can't remember if this is a retelling. Most of their books, well, the first 2 books, Always Never Yours and If I'm Being Honest, were like Shakespeare retellings. So I'm not sure if this one is or not. This says, when competition is what you live for, the biggest challenge can be learning what you love for. Since freshman year, Allison Sanger and Ethan Malloy have competed in almost everything. AP classes, the school paper, community service, it never ends. If Allison could avoid Ethan until graduation, she would. Except naturally, for 2 overachieving seniors with their sights on valedictorian and Harvard, they share all the same classes and extracurriculars. So when their school's principal assigns them the task of co-planning a previous class's 10-year reunion with the promises of a recommendation for Harvard if they do, Ethan and Allison are willing to endure one more activity together if it means beating the other out of the lead. But with all this extra time spent in each other's company, their rivalry begins to feel closer to friendship. And as tension between them builds, Allison fights the growing realization that the only thing she wants more than winning is Ethan. Based on the author's real-life academic rivalry, Ethan and Austin reveal how sometimes what you fight the hardest is what or who you end up holding closest. Okay, yeah, this is kind of like their story essentially, but you know, fiction of course. Okay. Next up we have Arusha and the City of Gold by Roshani Chokshi. This is book 4 in the Arusha series, and so I can't really tell you about this one. I have read the first one, but it's been a while, so I'm going to pull it up on Goodreads here. So it's actually called the Pandava Quartet, or the Pandava series. And I gave that book 4 stars. I said I think I would give this book a 4.5. I really enjoyed it. I read this with my 12-year-old son, so it's been like 3 years. And he also really enjoyed it. This book is based on Indian mythology and is written in a way that I think anyone could really enjoy it. I love the fact that it's a bunch of 12-year-old kids that are going to have to save the world. I think it also makes that book super easy for my son to relate to, because this is all done through the eyes of a 12-year-old. My son could see a lot of himself in Aru. Arusha has a big imagination which tends to get her into trouble by lying too much. When some kids at school discover her in yet another lie, they end up daring her to light this lamp. Aru knows better than to even touch the lamp, but she succumbs to the pressure. Of course, by doing so, she releases a great evil upon the world that will bring forth the end of time if she cannot fix her mistake. And it was a lot of fun. I can't remember if we read the second book yet or not, but we do have it. And I was able to get a good deal on this. Next up, we have The Project by Courtney Summers. I really enjoyed her book, Sadie. Ooh, I didn't look under the jacket. It says, "There is no flaw in you." And the end pages say, "You've been chosen." But yeah, I really enjoyed Sadie. It was a fun, like, multimedia kind of format. Well, it was told like with podcasts and things like that. And I really, really enjoyed it. And I wanted to check this out. Okay, so this has like bold wording throughout. So like it looks like you read that separately and then you read the other part. So it says, "The Unity Project stole my sister, murdered my son, saved my life. Are you ready to belong?" After a tragic accident kills most of her family and leaves her little sister low on the brink of death, Bee Denham is desperate for a miracle. It arrives in the form of Lev Warren, the charismatic spiritual leader of the Unity Project. He promises he can save Lo. All Bee has to do is believe. Lo awakes in the ICU to find her parents are dead and her sister has abandoned her for the Unity Project. The more Lo learns, the more she's convinced the beloved organization is hiding sinister secrets. If only she could make Bee believe. Years later, when a man shows up at the magazine Lo works for, claiming the Unity Project killed his son, Lo sees the perfect opportunity to expose the group and reunite with Bee once and for all. But her investigation will put her in the direct path of Lev Warren, and he will make her question everything she thought was true and all that she believes. And this just sounds so good. Very excited for that. Okay, next up we have The Whisper Man by Alex North. And this, let's see, yeah. This says, "If you leave a door half open, soon you'll hear the whispers spoken." After the sudden death of his wife, Tom Kennedy believes a fresh start will help him and his young son Jake heal. A new beginning, a new house, a new town, Featherbank. But the town has a dark past. 20 years ago, a serial killer abducted and murdered 5 residents. Until Frank Carter was finally caught, he was nicknamed the Whisper Man, for he would lure his victims out by whispering at their windows at night. Just as Tom and Jake settle into their new home, a young boy vanishes. His disappearance bears an unnerving resemblance to Frank Carter's crimes, reigniting old rumors that he preyed with an accomplice. Now detectives Amanda Beck and Pete Willis must find the boy before it's too late, even if that means Pete has to revisit his great foe in prison, the Whisper Man. And then Jake begins acting strangely. He hears a whispering at his window. Bum, bum, bum. Okay, then we have Stranger Than Fiction by Chris Colfer. I think this is the only YA book that he's actually written. The rest are middle grade, but I still wanted all of his books. This one says, 4 friends, 1 celebrity, 1 unforgettable road trip. Cash Carter is the young, world-famous lead actor of the hit television show Whiz Kids. He's a favorite of the tabloids and paparazzi who take notice of his every move. Who is he dating? Who are his friends? Everyone wishes they could be him, or at the very least, get close enough for a selfie. When 4 fans jokingly invite him on a cross-country road trip, they are shocked when he actually accepts their invitation. Getting a taste of the spotlight, this unlikely crew takes off on a journey of narrow escapes from photographers, not so glamorous mishaps, and surprise turns. But along the way, they discover that the star they love isn't the picture-perfect person they've seen on TV. Cash Carter has secrets, big ones that no one else knows about, and they just might tear his image apart. In this memorable novel, #1 New York Times bestselling author Chris Colfer reveals the truth behind power, fame, and the meaning of friendship on a hilarious, life-changing adventure across the states. And I think this sounds really fun. Next up we have Providence by Carolyn Kepnes. And I've read her You series, though I haven't read the most recent book that just came out a few days ago. But I really enjoyed that series and how it was told and everything. So when I saw I could get this was $5.97, and then I also got it like really discounted because of the store closing. This says, a propulsive novel that is part love story, part detective story, and part supernatural thriller from the acclaimed author of You, whose work Stephen King describes as hypnotic and totally original. Best friends in small-town New Hampshire, John and Chloe share a bond so intense that it borders on the mystical. But before John can declare his love for his soulmate, he is kidnapped. His plans for a normal life permanently dashed. 4 years later, Chloe has finally given up hope of ever seeing John again. Then, a few months before graduation, John reappears. But he is different now, bigger, stronger, and with no memory of the time he was gone. John wants to pick up where he and Chloe left off, until the horrifying instant he realizes that he possesses strange powers that pose a grave threat to everyone he cares for. Afraid of hurting Chloe, John runs away, embarking on a journey for answers. Meanwhile, in Providence, Rhode Island, healthy college students and townies with no connection to one another are suddenly, inexplicably dropping dead. A troubled detective prone to unexplainable hunches, Charles Eggs de Benedictus, suspects there's a serial killer at work. But when he starts asking questions, Eggs is plunged into a whodunit worthy of his most outlandish obsessions. In this dazzling new novel, and with an intense, mesmerizing voice, Carolyn Kepnes makes keen and powerful observations about human connection and how love and identity can dangerously blur together. And this sounds super interesting. Okay, only 3 more books to go. So this next book here is one that's the second book in a series, and the first book in this series is something that is going to be in a separate haul, a book outlet haul, which I believe will have aired by the time this one does. So the book that I have here is Good Girl, Bad Blood by Holly Jackson. The first book is called A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. So I've got it pulled up here on Goodreads. It says, the case is closed. 5 years ago, schoolgirl Andy Bell was murdered by Sal Singe. The police know he did it. Everyone in town knows he did it. But having grown up in the same small town that was consumed by the murder, Pippa Fitz-Amboy isn't so sure. When she chooses the case as the topic of her final year project, she starts to uncover secrets that someone in town desperately wants to stay hidden. And if the real killer is still out there, how far will they go to keep Pip from the truth? And then we have The Initial Insult by Mindy McGinnis. And I've read some Mindy McGinnis books before, and I enjoyed them, but they were really weird. Like, they were weird and twisted, and after reading them, I was like, WTF? But I really enjoyed it, so I thought I'd probably enjoy this too. And then this is her newest book. I think it just came out this month, I believe. This says, welcome to Amontillado, Ohio, where your last name is worth more than money, and secrets can be kept for a price. Tress Monter knows that her family used to mean something, until she didn't have a family anymore. When her parents disappeared 7 years ago while driving her best friend home, Tress lost everything. The entire town shuns her now that she lives with her drunken, one-eyed grandfather at what the locals refer to as the White Trash Zoo. Felicity Turnadue has it all: looks, money, and a secret. She knows that one misstep could send her tumbling from the top of the social ladder, and she's worked hard to make everyone forget that she was with the Monters the night they disappeared. Felicity has buried what she knows so deeply that even she can't remember what it is. Only that she can't look at Tress without feeling shame and guilt. But she'll have to. Tress has a plan. A Halloween costume party at an abandoned house provides the ideal situation for Tress to pry the truth from Felicity, brick by brick, as she slowly seals her former best friend into a coal chute. Tress will have her answers or settle for revenge. In the first book of this duology, award-winning author Minnie McGinnis draws inspiration from Edgar Allan Poe and masterfully delivers a dark, propulsive mystery in alternating points of view that unravels a friendship forevermore. Oh! Oh! Oh, I'm excited. James Patterson did a blurb on the back here. It says, if Edgar Allan Poe came back to write the scariest high school murder story ever, it probably wouldn't be half as good as Minnie McGinnis's The Initial Insult. You must read this book. Oh. And Brittany Cavallaro says, lush, dangerous, and deliciously twisty, The Initial Insult is an Appalachian Gothic for the ages, a smart and vital reworking of one of Poe's most chilling stories. So excited. I didn't even look and see what that was about. I just bought it because I was so interested in like any of her weird books. But I'm even more excited for that because I had no idea it was like a reimagining of an Edgar Allan Poe story. So yay. Okay, the last book that I have here is Pieces of Her by Karen Slaughter. And this actually has like a note inside here as well. It says, Dear reader, have you ever looked at the person you know best in the world and wondered what really lies below the surface? Whether what you see is genuinely what you get? I've always been fascinated by the secrets and lies that underpin our lives. And so that's the question Pieces of Her asks. Can you ever know anybody completely? I hope you enjoy it. And then it's signed. This says, what if the person you thought you knew best turns out to be someone you never knew at all? Andrea Oliver knows everything about her mother, Laura. She knows Laura has spent nearly her whole life in the small beachside town of Belle Isle, Georgia. She knows Laura's never wanted anything more than to lead a quiet, normal life in this conventional community. She knows Laura's a kind and beloved speech pathologist who helps others. She knows Laura's never kept a secret in her life. Andrea knows that Laura is everything she isn't. Confident, settled, sure of herself. Feeling listless with no direction, Andrea, unlike Laura, struggles to find her way. But Andrea's certainty is upended when a visit to the mall is shattered by an act of horrifying violence that reveals a completely different side of Laura. A cool woman who calmly faces down a murderer. It turns out that before Andrea's mother was Laura, she was someone else completely different. For nearly 30 years, she's been hiding from the woman she once was, lying low in the hope that no one would ever find her. But now she's been exposed and nothing will ever be the same again. The assailant was a mentally troubled teenage scion of Georgia law enforcement royalty, and now the police want answers about what really happened in those terrifying moments at the mall. Though she's been scrutinized at every level of the criminal justice system and her innocence is on the line, Laura refuses to speak to anyone, including her own daughter. She pushes Andrea away, insisting it's time for her to stand alone and make a life for herself. To save her mother, Andrea embarks on a desperate journey following the breadcrumb trail of her mother's past. Andrea knows that if she can't uncover the secrets hidden there, there may be no future for her mother, or her. Filled with intriguing turns, surprising revelations, and a compelling cast of characters, Pieces of Her is Slaughter's most electrifying, provocative, and suspenseful novel yet. I'm very excited to read this one too. So, have you guys read any of these books? Did you like them? Did you not? Comment down below and let me know. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give me a big thumbs up. If you'd like to see more videos like this, click that subscribe button down below. And until next time, remember to always be completely you. Bye!